Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Michaela. I'm very glad to have you join me on my channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today is story time, or the day of our chapter exchange. You give me a chapter, I give you a chapter. It's healthier than a cookie exchange for sure. No calories. If you're writing with me and you wish to exchange chapters, then send your chapter with written permission to writewithmichaela@gmail.com. I will post the email address at the end of the video and in the description below. I'm looking forward to reading your chapters. All chapters or writing prompts read on the channel, whether they are mine or another writer's work, are copyright protected material, and no one may use any part in writing their own stories. This story is PG-13, so if you're under 13 years of age, you need parental guidance. The story is in its rough draft stage, just as the last stories and writing prompts we've heard. The title of this story is Elementals. And today, we are really reading chapter 12. If you would like to read along, then send to the email I stated earlier and request a PDF of the chapter. Make sure you are specific. Now let's start. Elementals, chapter 12, The High Lord's Presence. Trakand and the two with him were walking toward the city. As they neared it, they could see the walled-off city in the distance, and as they got even closer, they could see people gathering at the gates. Trakand thought their partially shredded clothes looked more like the people going in. He had hated that their new clothes had received so much damage so soon after receiving them, but he was glad they were all three alive, and now he was glad that it looked more like they would blend in. By the time they arrived, the crowd had thinned quite a bit. They saw some people staying together and some dispersing, so they decided with an unspoken conversation to stay together. The three didn't know what they were looking for. They hoped they found the servant that got them the wands, but there were so many people. Around mid-morning, people started rushing indoors. Trakand and his group didn't know what to do. They looked around to try to discern what was happening. Then a man that had all white, unkempt hair and a beard and a mustache opened his door. He had a broom in his hand, and he motioned them inside. Trakand rushed inside with his two companions. The wife had a door in the floor open for them. Trakand glanced back and saw the man sweeping the steps. He decided to send into the cellar with his buddies, and the door closed. Trakand and the other two didn't want anyone to get in trouble. They felt sure if someone found them and recognized them as prisoners, then they would kill the old man and his wife. That was an uneasy feeling for them. They waited over half an hour before the cellar door opened again. Trakand cautiously walked up the steps into the house. The old man put a finger to his lips. He whispered, "I will show you to the wizard." Then the old man carefully looked all three of them over. Trakand saw the man nod at his wife, but he didn't know what quiet conversation they were having. They got ready to head out, and the wife handed them some cloaks with hoods and 3 pouches that could hang from their arm or tied to their cinchers. The pouches weren't small and were quite a bit bigger, almost like they had a second shirt or something inside. The man had a staff to use to walk, and he led them through the streets. The dusty streets were still quite empty, but Trakand noticed people peeking out of windows, and he saw the man looked around nervously. They made their way into an old grain mill, and under some hay there was a cellar door. They descended stairs once again, but the man told them not to talk yet. The man took off his cloak and threw it over his arm. Then he held up the staff as he held out his arms out. He said his spell inaudibly, and the wall opened up. Trakant didn't wait for any emotions. He darted into the new tunnel, and his friends quickly followed him. Soon the man joined them. "I am the wizard," he said. "You've met my son, who is an apprentice. He is currently an owl. Him and his cousin, currently a rat, were able to deposit some glamours in your previous cells. My wife is a witch, and she made your clothes." He paused and looked at their clothes, but then continued. "There's a lot, but I told you that first because even though the High Lord's army or part of it has left the fortress, does in no way mean that he's looking for you yet." Trakant glanced around the chamber. "I mean no disrespect, and I appreciate everything, but we didn't believe at first. However, we rode brooms and..." The wizard chuckled. "The gnomes should have your true wands. Word is that their village is currently out of phase. The servant, who is also an apprentice, I'm sure you won't recognize him either. Anyway, he said you didn't believe. It took quite an effort to get you new wands. We dared not ask the gnomes for the originals. Anyway, the servant, Miss Sorian, felt that the wands would help you get your glimpses." "Glimpses?" asked Trakant. "The prophecy said that the elementals would remember their previous life without a glimpse. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but the elemental would find themselves back in their world, or in the world they grew up in, and then return here to their birth world. Only the prophecy gets confusing, as when elemental was prophesied to go back multiple times. But then later in the prophecies, others went back." He shrugged. "I'm not sure how it works. Have you had a glimpse?" "I went back to my old apartment," stated Trakant. The other two acknowledged having had a glimpse. The wizard then asked them about the disheveled appearance, and the three told of the wolves. Once they told the wizard that the 3 wolves were dead, the wizard didn't pursue that topic anymore, although he had rubbed his chin in thought, and told them of the materials in their pouches to use as bandages to bandage things, until they got a sewing person down here. The wizard then showed them some books and told them to start reading. He indicated that he felt that Trakant would be the king here, and the other 2 would be kings in other cities. He said that the photo albums would probably prove him right. The wizard then left them. He promised he would be back tonight with some food, and hopefully he could get word on the rest of the land. Once he left, the 3 looked at each other. They didn't know what to say. Things were surreal. They all did agree that if they could go back to the other world again, they would do what they could to stay there permanently and not come back. They amended their statements to say that they didn't want to abandon each other, but they would understand the other two not returning. In the light, they looked over their injuries and found some water. They washed their wounds and bound them up properly. Of the 3, Trakant was more a reader, although he hadn't had time to read much, so he was the first to start looking through the books. Michaels was working on a stall in the stable when a horse 2 stables over started bucking in his stall. Michaels went to calm the horse before he broke loose again. As he calmed the horse, he heard a lot of commotion outside the stable. The doors to the stable and the windows were wide open, and he could see people running quickly into shops, and there were screams. He glanced to the side as a young girl entered the stable and looked out. There were 5 black horses abreast, spread across the dusty lane with riders, and behind the 5 were another 5, and then another 3. Behind the 3 was a single horse with a rider, and that horse was dragging a man through the town. Michaels heard dogs whimpering. A few people had run into the stable, and many of them ducked down below the open windows. No one tried to make eye contact with the riders or with the man they were dragging. Michaels knew the riders were the law here, and he certainly didn't want to be on the wrong side of the law. He did wonder what the man had done. Did he kill someone? Did he steal some bread? Did he hurt a child? Just what law had he broken? It took several minutes after the riders had passed before the people went back to their day. Michael glanced at the young girl, but he didn't ask her his questions. He wasn't sure he should ask the owner. He would rather ask Clavort or Sanchez, or if Sanchez was here, he would ask him. He patted the horse again and whispered, "You wouldn't be a talking horse, would you?" Then he chuckled and went back to work. "Talking horses are spies," stated the owner quietly. "That horse is just wild." Michaels looked up and nodded. He had felt himself jump a little because he hadn't seen or heard the owner come in. "I was just trying for some humor to help me get back to work after the parade. I didn't really think the horse could talk." "You're a bit naive," stated the owner. He slightly motioned to the windows. "The parade, as you put it, was because the man was caught talking against the High Lord, and from what I heard, a cricket turned him in." Michael straightened and looked at the owner in the eyes. His stomach lurched, and he felt his blood run cold. There was no free speech in this world, apparently. He glanced at the horse 2 stalls over. He looked back at the owner. "I guess I am naive. I won't talk out loud to myself any more." The owner chuckled a bit and patted him on the back. "Where are you from, anyway?" "Sumner," replied Michaels. "The stable master there was traveling for a few months and advised that I leave for a few months, too." The owner nodded as he considered the information. "I expect there was trouble there. The stable master probably saved you from any entanglements." He glanced around and lowered his voice. "Word on the street is that an elemental returned to our world, and the High Lord was sending his forces there to arrest her." Michaels opened his eyes wide. He didn't mean to. He tried to keep his face expressionless. "Like I said, don't worry. You left there soon enough not to witness anything." The owner then went back in the house. Michaels glanced around as he thought about the sliding parts of the tunnel. That had sped them up enough for his story to be viable. He shook his head to himself, but only a very trained eye would have picked up the motion. Michaels looked out the window and large double doors to the stable. People outside were behaving as expected. Then he looked inside the stable, and he didn't see any crickets. He thought to himself that Alice in Wonderland was a good movie, because only in that movie would the law or authority believe a cricket to convict a man. Then he saw a rat. He decided to kill it and say he didn't want the rat to spook the horse. Nobody seemed aware, so he dug up a little ground in a stall and threw the limp body inside. And he went back to work. Alex had been to 3 shops from the Flyers, and she had witnessed the horses dragging the man. She sighed to herself. She had decided to stay another night in the hotel, so she took her packages there and changed clothes. She dropped a spell on her clothes that she took off, and she tried to make sure she hadn't dropped a spell for Michael's clothes. Alex was fairly sure the spell for Sarge had dropped yesterday, sometime, or the day before. If she hadn't been with Michaels at the time, she wouldn't have known which set the magic dropped, and she wasn't keeping track of days. She didn't know if the spell dropped because of the distance, or perhaps he found the portal. She hoped once again he found the portal. Thinking back on Michaels, she probably needed to find him and give him some cash. She wasn't sure how long she could do a spell, but she giggled to herself as she remembered the high waters. Alex headed out. She would look for a place to stash or trash her clothes from this world. The owner returned to Michael's. Hey, my brother died a month or so ago. You're about his size. Do you need some clothes? Michael paused in his work and straightened up. Sure, that would be nice. Owner tossed him a sack of clothes. He caught some and others a stack, not a sack. The owner tossed him a stack of clothes. He caught some and others fell to the ground. Whatever you don't want, throw on the fire out back. My sister-in-law doesn't want to be bothered to donate them. Michael thought that this was perfect. He could burn his old clothes. He didn't know how long Alex could do the spell, and the spell seemed to keep going. But why push their luck while they were apart? Alex wouldn't know if his clothes changed back. He went in a stall and shifted through the stack and picked his least favorite 2 things. He wrapped those around his old clothes and dressed in the new clothes. He now had 3 sets of clothes, and the fit was almost perfect. Then he walked out back and found the fire. He tossed the clothes on the fire. Alex had seen an empty alley, and it had been smooth, solid stone instead of dust and cobblestones. She entered the quiet alley cautiously until it opened up to a statue of some sort. Alex felt it had been a fountain at one point. Then her hands felt like they were on fire. She shook her hands, but the burning continued. She dipped them down in the still water surrounding the statue, but to no avail. The only thing she could think to do was drop the spell on Michael's clothes, and immediately her hands felt normal. She didn't know what that meant. In her mind, she said, Sorry, Michaels, I couldn't hold the spell any longer. Alex then walked around the walled-off statue. No one was back here, so she felt she wasn't supposed to be back here either. The guy from the library that had put cash in the book appeared nervously at the entrance. He made some motions to her and then turned back to watch the alley. Alex retrieved her wand and swirled it around. She saw a square on the wall light up, so she went to it. She saw written words on the wall, and she whispered them as she read them. A whole section of the wall opened. Alex gaped at the dark opening, and then the guy hurriedly pushed her inside, and they both fell. Close it, he said. Hurry! Alex closed the entrance, but she was very nervous. She felt she had just trapped herself. The guy stood up and helped her up. He dusted off and then pulled out his own wand, and there was a small light at the end of his wand. My queen, he said as he slightly bowed, I am at your service, and I know I told you to look for signs, but you came straight here. This, of course, is not a direct way to the shield, but it has many important chambers as well. We can send some messages. He looked towards the wall and shook his head. The High Lord's men were in the city today, and they were dragging a man. Hopefully opening this did not alert them. We'll have to see if we can connect with Wizard Pelcom or Witch Grindal to get out. Alex still wasn't sure what was going on. Come, I'll show you. And the guy headed down the corridor. Alex didn't know the spell for light, so she followed closely behind. They arrived at a larger room, and the guy turned on many lights. He turned to Alex. Sorry, I forgot my manners. I am Chancellor Belcoroy. I am Chancellor of the Gudin estate until the return of Queen Alexandria Gudin, and until the legions restore her to her throne. Alex opened her eyes wide. This guy was serious. I'm not a queen, she stammered. Not yet, but you have the blood. Come, I'll show you some things. We don't want to stay too long. He showed her to some photo albums. The photos weren't like in her world. They were drawings done by artists, and they showed her family, her real family. Alex's hand went to her heart. She didn't think her parents she had known had adopted her, and she looked like the parents she knew. Chancellor Belcoroy pointed out a few things. There are some diaries, there are some spell books, there are some prophecies. Nothing can leave, at least not yet. I'm going to see what I can do to contact our allies. Alex watched him walk into another room, and she started reading the diaries. She felt she probably needed some spells, so she just skimmed the diary and hoped she could read it later. All of this was just so surreal. She definitely felt like Alice in Wonderland, and she felt that she had followed the rabbit. The rabbit kept saying, "I'm late, I'm late." Alex hoped she wasn't late, but she did assume that the High Lord was probably much worse than the Queen of Hearts. Seeing the enemy drag a man down the dusty street earlier was helping her form that opinion. Satchez and Wizard Pelcom were hurrying down the street. Wizard Pelcom thought he felt a message, but he wasn't sure, so he wanted to get to the wishing well and cast a spell there. Most people would just think he was getting a bucket of water, but he had to know if the message truly came from Chancellor Balkroy, and he didn't want to verify the message in the charm cellar. In case it was from a spy. And with the troops dragging a man through the city today, he wanted to be extra careful. They walked past the stable where Michaels was working, and Satchez involuntarily paused in his walking. Wizard Pelcom glanced at Satchez and then inside the stable. He pulled Satchez along and whispered to him, "Whatever is up has to wait." Satchez nodded and then continued walking at the faster pace. As they arrived at the wishing well, Wizard Pelcom noticed soldiers all around and not too far away, so he tossed in some coins and said aloud, "Oh, how I wish to pull up a full bucket and the well not be dry." He lowered the bucket. He glanced around. The soldiers had all looked at him and Satchez and had gone back to guarding. Still, it was quite risky to say the spell now. Wizard Pelcom thought of where else he could go to verify a message. Wizard Pelcom pulled up a bucket of water, and Satchez poured it into their bucket, and they turned and left. Wizard Pelcom knew Satchez had questions, but he couldn't answer them now, and he hoped Satchez kept his mouth shut. As they passed the stable again, Wizard Pelcom paid more attention. He saw Michaels inside working. He gasped to himself and kept walking. That was too good to be true. He would do what tests he could. Skysea and Starlam walked in Tanglevast. They had managed to time it fairly well because people entered in the morning and around noon, or they left then. It was risky to leave near dusk, but the authorities allowed it. However, to enter at dusk required much more scrutiny and paperwork. Both witches charged their magic before they entered the city, and both worked the conceal spell. Even though they were twin sisters, they separated once they entered, because they would cover more ground that way. Starlam went to the wishing well. She didn't expect a message, and she was surprised to receive one. Once she realized that it was Chancellor Balkroy, she felt better about her decision to head to Kashrim, and she knew that Alex had made it to Sisisnar and would have the help she needed. Starlam did remind Chancellor Balkroy about the tunnel behind the old theater that he could use if he didn't receive an answer. Starlam didn't want to stay too long. She did pour water into a water pouch, and she drank from her pouch and refilled it again to cover all the time she was taking at the wishing well. Then she moved on. Starlam had learned a lot from Chancellor Balkroy, and she realized that the additional troops were probably because of all the spies. She was glad she hadn't been in Sisisnar and hadn't seen the High Lord's men dragging a man. Tanglevast wasn't as large as Sisisnar, so Starlam and her sister by mid-afternoon, and they headed out. They hoped to enter Kashrim tomorrow morning. Once they stopped for the night, they would exchange news. Chancellor Balkroy rejoined Alex and told her that he couldn't get a hold of anyone. He thought perhaps the day's events and the abundant spies were the reason. He told her of the old theater. Alex was surprised because having a trap door in the stage floor sounded a lot like something they would have in her world, and she didn't think this world was as advanced as her world. but she listened to the description and the directions. They would not leave the theater together. Alex would leave first, and she would go back to her hotel room. After dusk, Wizard Pelcom changed Saches's form to that of a young boy. Saches snuck to the other stable and climbed up to the loft. When he touched Michaels, Michaels sprang up. Saches put a finger to his lips and motioned to Michaels to come with him. Michaels was very leery. He had heard stories from older vets about children luring them into danger, but then he thought about talking to the horse, and he didn't know if the owner would report that or not. Michaels cautiously followed the young boy. He once again wished he could text Alex or radio her or something. They were a team, and on this mission together. As they slipped down the streets, Michaels realized that the boy was avoiding the authorities, so he relaxed a little, but he was still on high alert. They arrived at the other stable, and the older man motioned for Michaels to remain silent. They entered the charm chamber. Once they entered, and the man turned on some lanterns, the man undid the spell on Saches, and Michaels immediately relaxed. "You made good time getting here," stated Saches. Michaels looked between Saches and the man, so Saches introduced him to Wizard Pelcom. Wizard Pelcom told him that Saches had told him about the female elemental he had traveled with, and he hoped she got away from Witch Eleanor. But he was glad Michaels had gotten away. He then asked Michaels his real name, and Michaels obliged. Wizard Pelcom looked at Saches. "It seems you were right. I've done the test. There's just one thing left." He looked at Michaels. "I don't know how you came home, but not using the gnome's portal is much to our advantage." Michaels pushed his eyebrows together. "I'm sorry. I'm a little lost." Wizard Pelcom motioned to a table. "Pick a wand." "Pick a wand?" said Michaels. They looked like sticks, but he remembered picking up Alex's stick or wand, and it had brought him and Sarge here with Alex in her dream. He briefly thought about the glossy green wand before the gnome once again cast a glamour, made it look like an ordinary stick. He lived in the moment and didn't worry too much about things, but now he felt that Alex's dream had become a kind of contagion, and he had somehow caught it. The gnomes hold the originals, or they did at one point, and they used those to lure the elementals through the portals. But a whole lot of things, stated Wizard Pelcom. The gnomes don't understand human affairs so much. They understand the giant better. Now pick a wand. We will figure out how to get you your original later. Michael walked over to the table, and there were 7 sticks. He wasn't sure how to pick a wand. He did remember the Harry Potter movie, and he smiled to himself as he remembered some of the mishaps that Harry had when he picked the wrong wands. And part of his remembering had to do with all the movies Alex had told them about as she had described things to them. Michaels reached down and picked up the 3rd from the left. He didn't know why he picked that one. Suddenly he dropped it, and he grabbed his head. After a moment, he shook his head to himself. It felt like an intense buzzing or vibration throughout his entire body, and his ears were still ringing. Wizard Pelcom didn't say anything. He and Saches just watched. Michaels picked up the middle stick and didn't feel anything. To him, it felt like dead wood. He waved it around a bit and set it back on the table. He glanced over his shoulder, and the wizard motioned him on. Next, Michaels picked up the 2nd from the right, and Michaels instantly felt at peace. He held the wand in his right hand, and he ran his left hand over it. It was very smooth to his touch. "You will learn how to use it, and then things will go better when you get your original wand," stated Wizard Pelcom. Michaels turned. Can you explain original? Made for you by your parents, stated Wizard Pelcom. It will have the blood from your cord. You know the cord that attaches you in the womb to your mother? What do you call it where you grew up? Umbilical cord? Asked Michaels. Yes, that sounds about right, replied Wizard Pelcom. Then he told some of the history to Michaels. In the morning, they would leave Sisisnar and head back to Sumner because that was where Michaels' kingdom had been before the High Lord had destroyed it. The wizard told him that once he activated the shield, they could start rebuilding things. Michaels wasn't sure, and he wanted to tell Alex or get her to leave with him. The Satchez told him that he suspected things about Michaels because he couldn't read his thoughts, and he had practiced those spells quite often, and that was why he was a good spy. Wizard Pelcom confirmed those things and told Michaels about the tests he had done. They told him these things because they said they sensed tension in him. Michaels sighed to himself. He didn't necessarily want to tell them that Alex had escaped Witch Eleanor and just let them wonder about that, but he did resign himself to learning some spells. He asked Satchez to teach him the mind reading, and he asked if that was just a one-way connection or if he could send thoughts as well. Wizard Pelcom explained things. Basically, yes, a person could read thoughts and send them, but you always wanted to read first to find out the affiliation, and higher-level magic users could protect their thoughts from others reading them, or they could protect their minds from someone sending them thoughts. Michaels heard the underlying message, that Satchez suspected him of being a higher-level magic user because he protected his thoughts from Satchez reading them. But Michaels wasn't doing anything to protect his thoughts that he knew. Still, he paid attention to the lesson, and he wasn't sure why he would want to protect his mind from someone sending him thoughts. He would think more on that later. Wizard Pelcom would say the spells over all three of them before they left in the morning, so no one would know they were leaving. Okay, writers, that is the end of chapter 12. Leave a comment on how many times Alex has thought about the magical clothes. It seems she is somewhat obsessed with it. Would you be obsessed with trying to make sure you kept the spell on your friends in this world? If you had the magic and you'd done it, would you keep thinking of it? Or is that over the top with thinking of it? Leave a comment on how Starlam found out that she did right by heading to Castrum. The water well is a great way to put Zoom meetings or telephone conferences in this setting. So we have things in our setting that we can just alter to put in this setting. So that's what I've done. So leave a comment on how your characters communicate across vast distances. And that says differences instead of distances. See, first draft is not a final draft. Leave a comment on Michael's unknowingly protecting his thoughts. And also I wanted you to leave a comment on the wand that felt like dead wood. What was that? Do you think it would feel like dead wood to everyone? Do you think Wizard Pelcom just put in a wand in the middle just so that it wasn't a real wand to know if somebody had... I mean, that would be kind of a good test if you were trying to see if somebody inherently had magic and you asked them to pick up the wand, And they went to the middle one and they picked it up and they're like, oh, I like this one. And it's not, it's just a stick. Leave comments what you think about that. If the dead wood is really just a stick or if it would be a wand to somebody else. Join me Tuesday for some jargon. And let's see, I have my calendar here. Yeah. Just jargon. I didn't take that hand out. Join me Wednesday for book club discussion of 1984. Join me Friday for chapter 13, Elementals. Visit my website, bymckella.com. Read some character bios. If you read some, then leave comments on which ones you've read. All your comments will help us start conversations, build our community. Keep all comments respectful. Remember, somebody else's perspective will help you with your writing. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and the bell so we can continue to write together and other people will have a higher chance finding this video and this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, please share it with them. This is Michaela with Write with Michaela. Bye for now.